Hey all, and welcome back to Fuzzy Ducksy Gaming. So it's been a few weeks since my last video, as real life has really kept me off of the game, and I've basically had nothing to talk about that was worth releasing content about. But with changes in the past few days, I've now got something that I can talk about, and it's about upcoming changes to the game, and also a lot of changes to the Warlock. So firstly, we'll talk about the changes that are being implemented to the game. They are on preview server at the moment on PC, so at some point they're going to be pushed live on PC, and then following that they'll be pushed live onto console. So the first change is to talk about crit severity and combat advantage. So in our current mod 17 iteration, combat advantage and crit severity are basically added to each other before damage is calculated. It simply means if you had 100% critical severity and 100% combat advantage, that you would do 3 times as much damage with a crit that has combat advantage as you would with just a normal non-crit attack. Now these bonuses now work on preview server multiplicatively. So basically, instead of it doing 3 times more damage, it will do 4 times more damage. It's basically just showing that combat advantage is going to be really important to A, boost that stat up, and B, make sure you've got it where you can. Now due to this, unfortunately, Vorpal enchantment is being reduced massively to compensate. Now, at max at the moment, it does 50% additional critical severity, and they're reducing that to 20%. Yet, reduction of 30%, which is huge. Now, I've only had a chance to test it very quickly, but from what other people are saying, it seems like it's quite a big nerf. The main problem with the nerf is that the calculation that they're looking at where combat advantage gets times by crit severity, you need both combat advantage and critical for that to cause that huge amount of damage. The reason Vorpal was so good is that when you didn't have combat advantage, you would still get that 50% bonus. Now that's going to be reduced and it's going to go down to 20%. That's, to me, a massive problem. We could see it coming a mile off, unfortunately, and it's just really annoying that Cryptic decide that nerfing the one enchantment that everyone spent all their AD on busted a gut to save for is the way forwards. Instead of bringing the other ones up short, reduce it a little bit to take into account that you are increasing the damage that we cause when you get combat advantage and critical severity. But don't reduce it by over half. This is, to me, looking at the weapon enchantments, not going to be best in slot anymore. It's going to take a bit of testing, but I don't think it's going to be the go-to weapon enchantment for DPS. We still need to look at what's going to be, but lightning for AoE certainly looks like it's going to be a better option. They're not really finished testing and refining this yet, so the percentage may change, because at the moment they've admitted that the changes they made to this on preview are not quite right. Shock horror, so they need to look at it again. But be ready for a nerf to it and be ready for it not to be best in slot anymore. Now, what the changes do mean overall is that combat advantage now becomes even more important because of the extra damage that we get. So, as I've said, you want to be adding combat advantage where you can through companion gear, normal gear, enchantments, that sort of thing. And you want to make sure that when you can, you're positioning yourself to get that combat advantage. They're kind of slowly weaning away from being able to just go up to an enemy in a dungeon and just stand wherever you want and do damage. You need to get combat advantage on the bigger enemies to take them down quick enough. So they've put a lot on their forum about damage bonuses and also about damage reductions. I'll leave a link in the description to where you can go and look at that in more detail, because it is too much to talk over in a video. So the last thing to cover off in terms of damage is that there are changes to overall how damage boosts work. Now, they've not been specific about what classes and what boosts lie in each camp, but basically they've come out and said that in the game there are some bonuses that get multiplied together and there are some that get added to each other. So basically anything that's multiplicative is going to do more damage than something that's additive, but they haven't said which classes and what bonus it affects. They've just said that to nullify this, they're going to make every single bonus in terms of damage additive. So say, for example, before you might have a 5% bonus from a feat and a 5% bonus from a buff, that's now going to be 10%, whereas before they would be multiplied together and it would be more than 10%. So as I say, I'm hoping they bring out something to say what classes are going to be affected by it. I do know just from a post a while ago that Warlocks apparently are one of those classes that do too much damage because of the bonuses. Yeah, I know, it's ridiculous.
Come on, don't bullshit me.
So the second part I want to cover, which is probably the last part I'll cover in terms of the update. There's lots of little bits that they're implementing here and there, but as I say, I'll put a link in so you can look at all of those in your own time. The second part to cover, I feel like this is deja vu, queue changes. Yeah. After I brought out that video saying they're going to change queues, and for skirmishes you now have to have the 3-1-1 formation, they've now decided no, that's probably killed queues for a lot of DPS, and it has. I went on my Xbox today, I had to queue 12 minutes for a leveling dungeon, and I had to queue 18 minutes for my intermediate queue on my DPS Warlock. So they've now reversed back to what it was before. So you've now got any 5 combinations of characters can go into a skirmish, which should speed the queues up. You're probably still going to have an issue that when you're doing it for advanced queue, that you still might get a group that can't do it. But I would rather take that odd frustration and have to wait, you know, an hour of a day to get all my queues done. It's just annoying. Now what they have done as well in terms of those individual dungeons and skirmishes is they've made some item level changes to that. So any normal dungeon now basically requires you to be level 12, and then it will scale you accordingly to the level of the dungeon. Skirmishes you can't queue for unless you're 14k item level, which to be fair, you should be 14k item level as soon as you hit sort of rank 60 or 70. Epic dungeons 17k item level, which again is probably a couple of days at endgame and you're at that 17k. And then trials require a 16k item level. So stuff like Demogorgon, for example, with 10 people, that now needs 16k item level to get in. Along with this, they basically said that when you do a repeat dungeon and your AD bonus obviously goes down, they've now said that the harder that dungeon or skirmish, the more AD you'll be rewarded with, but they haven't been specific. So basically, if you queue, for example, Throne of Dwarven Gods at 14k item level, you might get a 2000 AD repeat bonus. But if you queue for an epic dungeon, let's say Temple of Spiders at 17k, you might get 3,500-4,000 AD. Now I'm pulling these numbers out of the air, but reading what they've put, the harder the content, really the longer it will take you, so the more AD they're going to give you. That kind of covers off really the changes that they're making to queues and also the changes to damage. As I say, there's lots of tidbits here and there that they are changing, so if you are interested in learning more, go on to the Arc Games forums and have a look. So I hope that kind of helps in terms of looking at what you might expect in terms of changes for your character, and I'll try and bring out another video once the changes actually work on preview, they go to live on PC, and I can actually get onto my character there and have a test to see how it's running. So last thing before I leave, I just want to talk about what content I'm planning in the future. And the next video is going to be a leveling guide, but it's a leveling guide based around mod 17. There's been some changes around mainly companion equipment, how equipment is bound to account, character, that basically mean you can use your alts in an even better way, and you can also level them up a lot easier. Now I need to test everything because I've only got a couple of days played on mod 17, so I need to get through so I can at least get my Warden expeditions done and get the bits where you get the fragments, so I can get the reward boxes, so that I can make sure that what I'm planning works. Should take me about a week to do that, so hopefully this time next week I can bring a leveling video out for anyone that's maybe not sure where to go with mod 17, that will hopefully help them out. So again, as always, thank you very much for watching. If you've got any questions, leave them in the comments, and until then, I'll see you in the next video.